Today I want to share a simple embossing technique that you can use to create some beautiful Easter cards. Hi, it's Lynn Dunn from Stamptastic Designs. Thanks so much for joining me today. In this episode of Stamptastic TV, you will learn how to use the emboss resist technique to make 3 different religious Easter cards. All of the cards in this video feature the His Grace stamp set from Stampin Up. The set has some beautiful images and sentiments for making religious Easter cards. By the end of this video, you will have 3 beautiful religious Easter cards to make this holiday season. Plus, you will learn a simple embossing technique that you can use with any stamped images. For the latest card making ideas, be sure to subscribe to my channel and click on that little bell so you will be notified each time I upload a new video. Have you heard of the emboss resist technique? Leave me a comment below to let me know if you have tried this technique before or if this is brand new to you. So first, let's talk about the supplies you will need to create these cards. You will need some white and Highland Heather cardstock for the base of your cards and for the accent pieces. Now, I will be using some of the rectangular stitched framelit dies to create the accent pieces for this card. However, I will provide the measurements for the rectangular shapes just in case you don't have the die set. Now, since we will be doing some embossing, there are a couple things that you will need for that. First, you will need some Versamark, some white embossing powder, a sponge to do the emboss resist technique, and some type of heat tool to set the embossing. You will also need to choose your favorite religious themed stamp set. So for these cards, I am using the His Grace stamp set from Stampin' Up. We will also be using some regular ink to create these cards. So I am using some black Memento ink and some Highland Heather ink. And since the images in this stamp set require some coloring, I am also using some Mossy Meadow and Highland Heather Stampin' Blends, but you can use any type of coloring tools that you have on hand. All right, I think that's it. Let's get started. Now, we will be creating 3 cards today. I find it easier to just do all of the embossing first. Once we have completed all of the embossing, then we can go ahead and decorate each of the 3 cards. So we will start with the emboss resist technique. Now, this technique enables you to add color around an embossed image to accent it. The embossed image will resist the ink, leaving behind a colorful background behind the white stamped image. Now, to achieve this effect, we will be embossing white on white. That means I will be using white embossing powder on white cardstock. So we are going to start by cutting 3 pieces of white cardstock at 5 1/4 by 4 inches. Ink up the large flowery image with some Versamark and stamp it on the upper part of one of the pieces of white cardstock. Ink up that same image again and stamp it in the center of another piece of white cardstock. And for the 3rd piece of white cardstock, we're going to ink up the image again with the Versamark and stamp it on the top and the bottom of the white cardstock. So be sure to ink up the stamp with Versamark each time you stamp the image. Now let's sprinkle some white embossing powder over the areas with the Versamark. Be sure to cover the entire stamped image, so be generous with your embossing powder as we will be tapping off the excess. Once you have finished sprinkling each of the stamped images with the white embossing powder, you can now use the heat tool to set it. Once the embossing powder is set, you will see the embossing powder change from a grayish color to a shiny white. You're going to repeat this embossing process on the other 2 pieces of cardstock. Now that all of the images are embossed, we are ready to add the color. Open up your ink pad and dab the sponge directly into the ink. Grab a scrap piece of paper and practice the sponging technique on the scrap piece of paper before you actually sponge your card. You only need a small amount of ink on the sponge, so be sure to blot the sponge a couple of times before applying it to the embossed area. Use a light swirling motion when you apply the inked sponge to the embossed area. Sponge the ink in and around the image. You will notice that the ink color will not stick to the embossed image, but it will allow you to add color in all the right places around the image. Continue to sponge color around the embossed image until you achieve the desired look. Repeat this sponging process on the other pieces of cardstock with the embossed images. You have just created a background for 3 different cards using the emboss resist technique. Nice work! Now adhere each of these pieces of white cardstock to a purple card base. So to create the card bases, cut 3 pieces of Highland Heather cardstock, this is the purple cardstock, at 5.5 by 8.5 inches. Score the 8.5 inch side at 4.25 inches to create the card bases. Now we're ready to complete the 3 cards. Now the first religious Easter card design that I will share with you features the embossed image that we did on the upper part of one of the white pieces of cardstock. To decorate this card, cut a 1 3/4 by 3.25 inch piece of white cardstock or use the rectangular stitched framelit die to cut out this piece. Stamp the single flower image twice on this white piece of cardstock using black ink. Color in the image using the Mossy Meadow and Highland Heather stamping blends or one of your favorite coloring tools. Adhere the rectangular shape to the card front just under the embossed image in the background. Use a few dimensionals to pop up the image off the card. Cut a 7/8 by 2 3/4 inch piece of Highland Heather cardstock. Stamp a sentiment on it using black ink and adhere it across the bottom part of the flowers. That's it. How beautiful is this? Oh, and don't forget to decorate the inside of the card. The second religious Easter card design features the embossed image in the center of one of the white pieces of cardstock. So to decorate this card, we are going to start by stamping the single flower image in the upper left and lower right-hand side of the embossed image using black ink. Color in the image using the Mossy Meadow and Highland Heather Stampin' Blends or one of your favorite coloring tools. Cut a 1 by 2 3/8 inch piece of Highland Heather cardstock or use the rectangular stitched framelit dies to cut this piece. Adhere the piece to the center of the embossed image. Cut a 1 1/4 by 3.25 inch piece of white cardstock or use the rectangular stitched framelit dies to cut this piece. Stamp a sentiment on it using black ink and adhere it across the Highland Heather piece using a few dimensionals. And that's it, another beautiful Easter card. And don't forget, you can decorate the inside as well. Now the last religious Easter card design features the embossing that we did on the top and bottom of the white piece of cardstock. So to decorate this card, cut a 1 3/4 by 3.25 inch piece of white cardstock or use the rectangular stitched framelit die to cut out this piece. Stamp a sentiment on the bottom part of the rectangular shape using black ink. Stamp the single flower image on a slight angle on the top part of the white rectangular piece using black ink. Color in the image using the Mossy Meadow and Highland Heather Stampin' Blends or one of your favorite coloring tools. Adhere the rectangular shape to the card front directly in the center of the embossed images. Use a few dimensionals to pop it up off the card. And of course, don't forget to decorate the inside. Now you have 3 religious Easter cards that you can create with the His Grace stamp set. And if you don't have that stamp set, you can certainly use any set that you have on hand to create beautiful cards like this with the Emboss Resist technique. And if you enjoyed this video, feel free to download the printable tutorial. You can find the link in the description below this video. Thanks so much for joining me today. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know by liking it and sharing it with your friends. And leave a comment below to let me know what you enjoyed most about the video and the projects shared here today. Have fun getting creative, take care, and I'll see you soon.